My name is Brian. I'm one of the technical project engineers here in the US. And today's webinar is going to be on the Mobotix Live app, formerly called Mobotix Bell or MX Bell. And that was back when it was designed just to take care of the T series door stations. So when someone would come up one of the door stations, the Bell app would open up and you could have two-way communication and video to the door station. But now that we've redesigned it, renamed it the Mobotix Live app, it now can manage any of our cameras from the 4 series on up to the latest 7 series IoT devices. So literally the 4 series all the way on up. I doubt anybody's got anything out there older than the 4 series, or very few. So I'll go ahead and bring my phone up to the screen that you guys can see there. So this is my this is just simply my iPhone. This is not a simulation or anything. This is just the real McCoy here. And again, so today we're just going to do an overview of the Live app, and I'll show you how we go ahead and get to that. So I'm going to slide over here, tap on Mobotix Live. What's going to come up first is my my default grid. Okay, my default camera grid. You can see I only have 2. I have a grid 2x2, which is 4 panels, but I only have 2 cameras in that particular grid right now. You see the other 2 panels are empty. And so the phone on the screen that you're seeing is just like you would be looking at it if you were holding it in your hand. You'll see it'll react as I turn my phone sideways to the landscape. It'll work that way. Or if I come back to vertical. So the phone on the screen is going to interact and act just like the phone I'm holding in my hand right now. Okay, so when you open the app, and I'll show you this in a little bit, you can set up the app to open into a single camera view. Maybe you've got a camera that you want to be displayed as soon as you open the app, or maybe you want a grid, or maybe you want one of 4 grids that you have set up. So you can pick what your startup view is within the settings, and you'll see that in a little bit. But this is what I've chosen. And again, I'm holding the phone vertically in my hand, as you see it on the screen. Literally, if I turn it sideways in my hand in the landscape, you're going to see what I'm doing here on my phone. Everything except for my finger pressing things, but you'll see the reaction. Okay. So we're going to go over some of the icons that you see right up front here, and we'll go through those one by one. Again, jot your questions down, and we'll tackle those at the end. Give me 1 second here. I just got to fix a setting. Sorry for the noise. You never know what you're going to get when you're doing stuff live, and I'll apologize ahead of time if my little beagle puppy starts barking. So anyway, so let me see what I'm sharing here. Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to the little menu bar that you guys are used to seeing in mobile apps. Some people call it the hamburger there in the upper left-hand corner. That's a settings button, so I'm going to press that, and you see what opens here. So we can go into a live mode per camera. So you see I have 2 cameras in there, my M16 thermal and then my M73 IoT device. I could go into the playback setting just by tapping one of those, again, either the M16 or the M73. As we roll on down there, you see I've got 2 grids set up under the grid section. One of them is default, the other one is grid number 2. Okay. Then I go down to a visitors section, which handles visitors to this app. The locations button, what the locations is all about is how you get set up the app or your cell phone or your mobile device to communicate. So I'm at my home office network. So that's what I've chosen, how the app is going to react and how the phone is going to connect. So I'm on my home network. That's why it says at home. If it's your location, let's say if I was up north a couple states, I might possibly at that point pick the abroad location, because again, the connectivity from my mobile device to my cameras here in my home network is going to look different than it is if I'm actually attached to the local area network, if that makes sense. So just to explain that again, since I'm on my home network and I'm amongst the local area network here to my cameras, that's why I chose that. Again, if I were outside my network, outside my home network, say 100 miles away, the abroad settings are going to look different, because now I've got to connect to my home network, if that makes sense, in order to see my cameras at home. And then limited has to do with limited broadband or limited bandwidth. Okay, we go down to the soft buttons. And I'm going to go through these. I'm just explaining them to you right now. We got the soft buttons configuration. I'll explain that, and then we've got settings. Okay, so first, just to go back, I'm going to go back to the beginning here. I'm going to click on the app. It's going to open in my grid view. Again, I can turn it landscape, turn it vertical. I'm going to click on the settings up there in the upper left. I'm going to choose my M16 thermal camera that I've got sitting out here on the 3rd floor of my apartment complex. I'm just going to click on M16 thermal or tap that, and you can see it brings up my demonstration M16 thermal out there. Okay, this is a camera. You guys are probably aware of these cameras because you're joining this webinar for the live app, so you must know something about Mobotics already. So this is again my M16 thermal outside on my balcony, and I've got just a day color sensor on the left side, and then my thermal TR sensor on the right. I won't go into explaining why I've got different windows set up and so forth, but that's just for thermal, different thermal parameters that I've got set up when I do demonstrations for that. So again, if I hold my phone vertical or landscape, the screen reacts. So I'm in that camera. I can you can see the camera's named at the top, M16 thermal, and then over to the right you see what looks like a play button. If I do tap on the play button, it's going to put the camera in a playback mode. As you can tell, there's nothing moving in the image, and of course you've got the typical play forward, fast forward, step forward, and then rewind and so forth. And you see the time down there. It goes to the closest possible event. So you see in the upper right-hand corner, my icon changed from that playback icon to the live icon. So simply if I tap the little camera up in the upper right-hand corner, let me see if I can create a pointer here. Give me a question here. Give me a second here. I think I have the ability to, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not, but let's see if I can do a pointer here. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see my cursor here, my pointer, my mouse cursor. So again, this is the, I know I'm in the live because I have the playback button here. And of course you can see things jumping around, these sensors and so forth. So again, if I tap that, it takes me into the playback, tap it again, takes me back to live, okay? Just to reiterate that again, I'm going to go back to the settings here, tap that, and now I'm going to tap my M73 name there, and then it'll pull up the M73 out on the same balcony, almost pointed in the same direction. So again, hold it in landscape, it'll move the landscape, and so forth. Okay. If I click on the name here at the top, which was my grid, I can now affect some of the cameras that are in this grid. Like if I click on the information button over here next to my M16 thermal, you can see the information is going to come up that allows me to connect to that thermal camera. Okay, the name, the address. If it were a remote address, I could also set this up, because then if I move my location to abroad, it's going to utilize this remote address and not, of course, the local. And then I've got username, password, and so forth. So I'll click the back button here. We'll go back. Same thing for my M73. If I click the little I button there to the right, it pulls up the information for that camera. Okay. These are reference images, by the way, that you're seeing in front of you now. Those are not live images. And again, the reference image basically is if this camera were to change position, let's say if I were to reposition this camera, let's say my M73 over to the right, I may want to have a different reference image. So that reference image would give me an indication, okay, what camera am I looking at? So again, if I were to take this camera, point it to the right, that means this really is not a good reference image because it's not what I'm looking at. So if I wanted to change that reference image once the camera is locked down to where I need it, again, I would just hit the I button and then click the generate new reference image. And if I click that, you're going to see we got a little progress wheel here. It's going out, it's grabbing an image from that camera. Now it's not going to look any different to us when I hit the back button up here, because again, I haven't repositioned the camera. But if I would have repositioned this camera to somewhere else or taken it to another location altogether, that new reference image would be up here. Okay. I can go up while I have my list of cameras here, only 2 right now. If I go up and click the edit button up top, this is where I can delete one of the cameras, okay, from the My Camera section. If I just would click that or check that and delete all or delete selected, I won't do that. I'll uncheck it. So that's kind of what that's all about. When you're finished there, I'm just going to tap the done button. Again, I hope you guys can see my cursor. I can't tell on my shared screen if you can or not, but hopefully you can. If you need to search for a camera, let's say if you had a bunch of cameras in here and you wanted to search for a specific camera by name, again, M16 thermal, M73, let's say I had 25 cameras in here, you can go ahead and click the search bar, put in the name, and then that way you don't have to scroll through them. It'll go find it and bring it front and center. Again, guys, I don't mean to rush through this, but this is basically just an overview. It's not necessarily a deep dive. The app's free. If you've got some cameras, you can connect to it. I suggest grabbing it and just spending some time with it. It's kind of fun actually to have all this right at your, right inside your pocket. The plus sign down here, if I click that, that's when I can add a new camera. Okay, so I can name it up here, put the address in, the remote address if need be, username and password, and so forth. And again, that's fairly easy to do. You don't have to have a lot of information there. Just remember, again, if you want to get to it from off-site, you would have to have set up your router and or your firewall in order to get the right information to put in here, most likely like a port forward type of thing, or a DYN DNS type connection, and then have that in there. So just in case you are on vacation somewhere, you can still get back to your cameras with this app. Okay. So I'm going to hit the cancel button here. We'll come back to there. Nothing much else to show you here. We've kind of gone over it. It's pretty basic. I'm going to hit the close button here. It takes us back to our single camera because that's what we've chosen. I can click on M73 up here. Takes us back to where we were. I'll close that. I'm going to go up to the what we call the hamburger or the settings button. And again, this is now where I can get back. You can see I don't have a check next to default for the grid. If I click default, it's going to take us back to our camera grid. Okay. The grids, they don't have to be 2x2. You've got a bunch of different options. I press the edit button up here. This is where I can also delete a camera with literally one tap, or add a camera. And if I just simply were to tap on this plus sign here, you recognize this screen. This is back to my add camera screen. So I would click the plus sign, add the camera, hit save, and it would show up in here. And then once I hit close, it would then populate this panel. Okay. Now I'm still in the edit section of this window because you can see I can delete other cameras. Okay. So I'm going to hit the done button here up top there, and there we are back to our normal, we'll call it home screen. Okay. I'm going to click the setting bars again. And let's see, we'll go down to one of the things I want to make sure to show you is the soft buttons. This is where it gets kind of fun. The soft button configuration. So I'm going to tap this guy down here. I've already built one in there. And if you guys know Mobotix well enough, you have a lot of options to be able to show things, turn things on, turn things off, send different commands to other systems. You know, there's a lot of options built into our devices and our software. So I'm going to click the soft buttons config. This is kind of fun. So you can see I got one in here. I called it Start Coffee Maker. I mean, literally, I could do that off the back of a camera. Okay, if you guys think about it, I could have one of my IoT devices or one of the 6 series or 5 series utilize the MX bus to a RS-232 module or an output module, or with the 7 series utilizing the RS-232 IO box on the 7 series connected via the mini USB cable, and literally affect one of those or hook up one of those outputs to a trigger to start a coffee maker. Again, a coffee maker, like many other things, has an on and off button, or a power up or power down button, or just simply interrupting the power to it, where the coffee maker may start when it's got power. That's maybe a cheap analogy, but if you can turn on and off things, you can do it from this app, because this app is attached to your cameras. And of course, your cameras, tons of options in which to affect other systems, other things, just almost endless. So if I wanted to create another soft button, well, first I'll show you the coffee maker. When I just basically clicked on the name, I have a choice of icons here, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then the command, it's I'm going to signal an output. Okay, so literally, if I press this, depending on what output of what camera I've got it pointed to, I could turn on or off, or trigger some device, unlock a door, what have you, just like the just like the T26 series does. You can unlock a door from your workstation through the through the application. Same type thing here. Okay, except it's sitting in your pocket. Okay, I'm going to hit the back button here. Okay, so now not a whole lot more to say about that. That's just kind of a fun one I built. If I hit the edit button, the same window opens, which allows me to change this or add one. Okay, so whether you tap this or the edit button, gets you to the same spot. I'm going to tap the plus button here, and you'll see some of our options. So I could name it, and I'll just name it unlock door. Okay, then it allows me to choose an icon to associate with this, so it shows up on my toolbar, and I'll show you that in a little bit, how that shows up. But tap on this line anywhere, it'll go to the available icons, and you can see it's a fair amount. There's some fun ones in here, but for unlocking a door, this one I chose for the coffee maker because it looked like heat rising. You can pick on me later about that one, but for unlocking a door, I might choose this one here because you've probably seen that associated with earlier apps. But I'll choose this one maybe for a door. I mean, I almost could do that one too. Looks like a doorway with a check, but just go ahead and pick one that might help you associate what that soft button is for. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick the door opening up. Okay, I've highlighted that. Then you'll just hit the back button. So there's the door. Is it camera dependent? Typically, yes. If it were a device that you added to the camera or added to the app outside the camera, one of our other type of devices, it wouldn't necessarily be camera dependent, but this is, of course. And then I'm going to tap the command button, and you'll see the options that are in here. So I can toggle a light. And again, so this is switch type stuff, signal and output. And then here's some privacy stuff to do to the particular camera that you got that soft button on. So we could obscure an area. And obscure just simply means, if you guys don't know, that simply means take an area of the image and basically it's almost like putting a shower door, those foggy shower doors in front of it, where you can kind of tell, it manipulates the image. You can tell there's some movement behind it, but you can't identify it. But you can still see there's something behind that obscure area. So you can turn that on and off, recording on and off, again from a soft button, arming on and off. Some notifications, play an alarm sound on the camera, that was programmed into the camera. Send an email with a picture from the camera, again from this app, just by touching that soft button. Or utilize the mixed message to another camera or another system where there's integration. Okay, and then some advanced application programming interface type stuff, custom user click, simulate calling. So I'll show you what you get once you press one of these. So I'll go ahead and do the obscure area on here, and you can see part of the command is going to build out. Okay, so again, if you guys have done this before, this is the command to obscure the image. Okay, and there's a check mark there. Here, there's nothing else to add. Let me pick another one here. Let me uncheck that. Let's pick. Let's do this. Okay, because that's dependent. And so I would have had to build a. The reason I chose this because there's a little more homework to do ahead of time. So I would have already had to build a profile for the signal outputs within the camera itself, and name the profile what that signal output was for. Starting a coffee maker, unlocking a door, locking a door, what have you, locking a cabinet, anything that can kind of be switched on and off. You would have had to build that profile first, and then this is like, hey, so edit or enter the profile name. And once you enter the profile name, the string will be complete at that point, and then you will have you'll have set that soft button up. Yeah, user click. That's if you want to do different things just from the click of the button. In fact, let me check that. And just like in the soft buttons in the camera GUIs that you guys are used to seeing, you know, you can set up user click to do different satisfy different operations and so forth with just clicking the user click button. So again, play with these. You can't really break anything. Some things you have to do homework on, some you know, ahead of time or set up ahead of time, some not. But that's some of the soft buttons. And if I go back here, all right, I'm going to save. Let's see, unlock door. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and save that. So now we've got two of them. I'm gonna close here. And so down here is where you're gonna have different icons show up, and including the soft buttons I just created. So that just expands the soft button window. Okay, and so if I had, you know, if I had 6 or 8 of them in here, you know, this box will expand a little bit and all the soft buttons will show up. There'd be one here, 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 and then they would continue to build depending on the number that you had built into your app here. Okay, and the tapping, sorry, I tried to do that with my mouse, but that won't work. Tapping that on the phone there, your mobile device, it collapses it again. So that kind of toggles on and off. Okay. When you're, one thing to mention before we go away from the grid, when you're in the grid, similar to management center or control center of yesteryear, all I did was tap. You guys can't possibly see it. I'm just tapping on each of the images. It's going to throw it to full screen. I'll get the little X up here. If I hit that, will take me back to the grid. Okay, so again, I'll tap, just simply tap on my mobile device. One tap on that one. Again, it interacts as I move my phone. And one thing I wanted to mention here, now that I'm basically brought that one camera to full screen, okay, so now I've got some default icons down here, and you'll notice this one's already here, even though I created another one. This one's already here by default, because again, a lot of what this app is used for is door station type stuff, so that will unlock a door if it's hooked up correctly and so forth. All the pieces are in place. But again, since I brought that camera to full screen by itself, in other words, that's, you know, I'm focusing in on that camera. So now those icons at the bottom, I don't have an audio device on here. If I did, with that gentleman walking by there, and if I were to tap although I may not hear him anyway, he's not doing anything, but if I'd simply just tap that speaker button. So again, if my M73 here, if I had the audio module on there, it would allow me to not only hear what's going on in here, but also to speak through the app to that area. Okay, so again, just like you guys typically would do, tap to open up communications. One thing to mention here, if I did have an audio device on this camera or any other ones, if you do come in and tap, watch what happens to the microphone over here. So if I tap once, so now again, if the audio device was on there, two-way communications have been opened up. This goes with the camera on, in the web GUI or management center or so forth. If you open up that audio channel, the way it opens up in the beginning is not only here, but speak. Okay, so the two-way communication is open. Speak to the camera, listen from the camera. If I want to mute myself at this end at the mobile device, I basically just would tap that microphone. You'll see it turn red. So now the sound, if you would, from the camera side is still opened up. Okay, I'm still good with that, but I'm muted out to the camera. Okay, so that's what this icon here is. I can unmute myself just by tapping it again, but tap to mute, you know, if it's red, got a line through it, your end, the user end, we'll call it, is muted, but the mic out at the camera is still open. So again, just let you know that so you don't get yourself in trouble and somebody hears you over talking or over, you know, about something and you didn't realize what you've done. If you tap that, same thing goes for the, you know, browser and so forth. If you tap that, two-way communication is open. Okay, so if you only want to listen to what's going on out here and not for out here to hear what you're saying, again, just tap that guy, she turns red. Sorry, my fingers. No, I meant did that freeze up on me. Uh-oh, tell me my phone froze up. Sorry, guys. There we go. Live webinars. Tap it again, unmute. Okay, so toggle back and forth. And then to hang up all together, tap the speaker. Okay. If this were a camera that had the correct modules hooked up to unlock a door, even though I created a soft button there that says unlock door, there's one kind of built in, and maybe I should have picked another one to create up top there since this one's already there. But nonetheless, if I were to tap that icon, it says, hey, you're M73, do you want me to open the door or essentially unlock the door, because I'm not going to open it. And then I would tap either cancel or open. That would trigger the camera to then trigger an output either on the camera or on a functional module connected to the camera, and it would activate that relay. Okay. Again, you know, I'm in this camera, so if either one of those are associated with that camera, my start coffee maker or the unlock door, I just tap those and the associated actions would happen at that point. So again, I'm in this camera here. I got to it from the grid. There's my little X to get back to the grid. Okay, so if I tap that X, there I'm back at my grid. Let me show you grids here. I tapped on the grid. Okay, so there's my 2. I don't even think I'm using grid 2, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to delete the selected grid. Now all I have is default. Okay, and I'm going to hit done. So just a default grid, but I want to create another one. Okay, I wanted to show you this. I hit the plus sign down here. Again, I hope you guys can see my cursor, but the plus sign at the bottom, that's going to open up. This is where I can name my grid. Grid 2, and then here's where I can choose my format, and I've got a ton of choices, you can imagine. So you know, 1x2, you already know I've got a 2x2 set up. If I wanted a 3x3 for this grid, I would just put the check mark next to the 3x3. Go ahead and hit the back button. I'm satisfied with both. I'm satisfied with the name. I'm satisfied with the format. I'll hit the save button. Okay. And it takes me back to where I can add another one, but I'm really done. So I'm just going to hit the close button there. And now I have 2 grids, but I don't have the cameras pulled to that pulled to that other grid. So when I open that, I do get the grid, okay, grid number 2, which was 3x3, but I don't have any cameras built into that or pulled into that that grid. I would basically go up, let me show you that before I do it. The edit button up here. So again, I'm in grid 2. I have no cameras associated with it yet. I'm going to hit the edit button up top here. Sorry guys, I'm trying to remember to show you here since you can't see my finger. Hit the button. So I'm going to hit edit. And again, now I can add a camera to each one of these panes. Okay, I'll choose the upper left. And then my 2 cameras in the system. If I had 20 cameras in the system, I could choose any one of the 20. I'll just go ahead and pick my thermal camera. It shows up. Then I'll go ahead and click the lower right and then click my M73. And if I had some more, go ahead and do that. This is kind of a bad analogy, but it serves its purpose. You guys know what I'm doing here. I'm going to go up and click the done button. There's no more to add. Or if I wanted to delete one of these, if I tap this, it'll delete it right away and give me the add button again. Okay. So I'm going to go up and hit done. So there's my grid. As crummy as it looks, but my 3x3 grid. Okay. And of course, if you add more cameras on there, or you go to a larger grid, you know, like a whatever 9, and I don't think we have a 9x9, but one of the bigger grids, these, of course, these panes are going to get smaller. Okay, as you guys are already aware of. Again, I still have access to my salt buttons that I created. Okay, so I'm in grid 2, says it up here. If I tap the grid, I can then go back to my default just by tapping it. Now I'm back to my default grid. Okay, which was the 2x2. Okay, guys, this works on iPhone or Android. I'm on an iPhone, as you can probably tell by the shape of things there, and then my my home screen of apps. I think that's about it, guys. Oh, sorry, we'll go on that last one, the settings. This is the settings. Let me go back here and show you where I'm going to tap. I'm going to tap the hamburger first, and then down at the bottom here, the settings. And this is the settings for the app, not the settings for a camera. This is the settings for the app. Okay, what do I want as my start page? I can choose show the first camera. So camera number 1 on the start of the app, or show the grid. Okay, so I can choose either one of those. Then hit the, once I tap on it, I'm satisfied where the check mark is, hit the back button. I can show the camera's reference image. We talked about earlier. I can show the camera full image. Sometimes when you load a camera and the app brings it up, you may not see the whole image. It may be zoomed in a little bit. And then you can, you guys, well, I'll show you this in a second, how you can expand and contract the image just by dragging fingers like you normally do with mobile applications. But here you can say, show me the full image. You can pick your ringtone or your alarm tones, dark theme or light theme. That's just simply means how do you want that to show up. I mean, I prefer the dark, but it's really a personal preference. The about will show you the latest info on this app. Okay, just hit the back button. Now here's the interesting one that you should be aware of. So exporting. Okay, let's say you've got a small company and you've handed out half a dozen phones, and everybody's going to utilize this app. All 6 people are going to utilize this app. Well, you don't want to have to go through setting the cameras up, pulling them into each and every app. So basically, one way to alleviate that is to simply create your setup on your mobile device or the first one, however you want it to show up on the other ones. Okay, so create like a template on that first one. You could customize afterwards, but create a template where you know that each one of those 6 phones, you want them to have at least what this template looks like. Okay, so you would create that, and then you can tap, once you're finished, you could tap the export bar. And you can see here the export data will contain cameras with their push status, location of the grid, soft buttons, details such as push notification tones and themes will not be exported, okay, because those are specific to the device. I tap OK. It's going to make me enter username and password, and then it's going to build an export file. And you know what? Let's see if it's just our default one. I think that's what I have in here. No, okay. So now I got to find sorry guys, I have to find the I have to remember my my app's username and password. Oh, I know what it is. I'm not going to press it in because you guys will see it, but I do know what I have in there now. But that's the password to the app, okay? Because you got to create that when you load the app. Just that way, not just anyone can play with your phone. So once I give it my credentials, it'll create a little export file, and when it does create that export file, it gives you options. You want to text it to somebody. You want to WhatsApp it to somebody. You want to email it to somebody. It'll give you those options. Any option that shows up gives you that option to send it from one mobile device to another. So that's kind of neat. So once that other mobile device takes it in, then their mobile device is going to look like yours. Okay. And then you can go after, getting the individual phones at that point and saying maybe phone number 3, you want to delete a couple cameras off of that, but you want them to have the rest of the cameras. Okay. So once you've got that template across to those other 6 phones, that's going to save you a lot of time. And if you don't need to manipulate any of them, then you're done. If you do, need to customize a couple of them other than what your template was, then you've got that ability also. Sorry. The import button here, same thing. If somebody has sent you a file or a setup or so forth, and you want to import it, let's say they've tucked it away in a folder somewhere, and a couple weeks later you import it. It's just like doing anything else. You tap the import. There's no recents there that I've pulled in, no recent import files, so it's it says it right there. But I could browse, and then this of course takes me to my iCloud drive. But I could browse, go grab that export. Sorry, and pull it in, and then boom, my mobile phone, where it wasn't populated before with a Mobotix Live configuration, now it is, and then manipulate as you again as you need to. Okay, so I'll go ahead and tap the close button up here, and that's really the gist of it, guys. That's kind of an overview. I probably went a little deeper than I needed to on some things, but that's enough to get you started. The app's free, of course. I suggest getting it, play with it as soon as possible, and I think you'll really dig it. Just like I say, if you got cameras at your house or your business, just be sure to set up the remote connectivity part. So when you are quote unquote abroad, outside your network, you can still connect and do things from your mobile device. Okay, so at this point, any questions? If you got those loaded in, we'll tackle those. Hopefully, I've covered. If I don't have any questions, that means I've covered enough to answer questions. If you think of any questions, in the meantime, afterwards, then you know how to get a hold of us, sales@mobotix.com, or you can hit my address, which is brian.chetlet@mobotix.com, or jaspreet.kochar@mobotix.com. It's pretty easy to find our information, but you'd be best to go to sales first, and then they'll distribute the questions or distribute the emails to us. So again, sales@mobotix.com. If you guys are Mobotix partners already, you know you've also got support@mobotix.com, but support is more for technical support that you're having to deal with, not necessarily questions from a webinar. Let me do this. Let me put my email address up on the screen there so you guys can, actually what I'll do is I'll put it in the chat. That makes most sense. Put it in the chat here, send it out to the entire group. Okay, guys. So that about wraps it up. Again, if you got any questions, just like I say, send us an email, and we'll get those answered for you. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well.